Hey team, welcome to Inside the Movie Photographer with Jasin Boland. This morning I'm taking a little stroll around Sydney Harbour with my new Nikon Z30. Now I love this little camera, and when I mean little, I mean it's light and tiny. The first thing you're going to notice is there's no EVF, which actually is a pretty good thing because it means you can stuff this camera into little places that you've never been able to do before. Now, it's got a fully articulating screen, so you can do whatever you need to do. You can do high shots, low shots, absolutely anything. Now, especially for those coming from phones, this is the perfect camera. But even more perfect than that is, you can change the look because you can use all the Nikon Z lenses, and you can use most of the Nikon F-mount lenses with a F to Z adapter. Now, I'm not here to really talk about stills on this camera because I've got other ones that do that, but it's more than capable for what you want on your holiday and your content creating. It can do everything. It's, I believe, the same sensor as the Z50 and maybe even the ZFC. I'm not too sure about that one, but it's really blowing me away. Now, video-wise, this is exactly what I want. I've been looking for a camera that I can use for my YouTube channel, for shooting in the studio, and for doing these walkarounds like this. The first thing you're going to notice with the video is that it's auto ISO. So at first I was like, oh, hold on, I want to take that off. But it's giving you a good cinematic look. So what that does is it's just going to adjust the ISO to get your exposure right when you're shooting in auto, which I'm sure most people will be doing with this camera. It's not changing the aperture and it's not changing the shutter. So you're not going to get any deviation in the background when it fluctuates. Now, I set the ISO limiter, auto ISO limiter, to about 800 ISO outside. I'm not sure what the native ISO is on this camera, but most cameras are around that area. Now, the reason why I do that is if I go inside or something like that, you don't want it to jump out to 25,600 or, you know, or high 1 or high 2. You want it to keep the quality. So, you know, I'd go up to 1600, 3200 and 6400, you know, if you really need it in a dark tunnel or something like that. But, you know, apart from that, keep to where, oh look, there's a bridge. That's pretty cool. And over here, we have the Opera House, and I'll just zoom that in and show you. Oh, and we just happen to have a ferry cruising by at the same time. How cool is that? So this is the kit lens. It's the 16 to 50, 3.5 to 6.3. Now, what that means is that it's a DX lens and a DX camera. So what you do is with the 16mm, you halve that, so 8, and then you add it onto the 16, 24, so it makes this lens 24 to 75. You know, as I was saying, you can use all the Nikon Z mount lenses and hundreds of the F mount lenses. Now, we should get out of here because I want to take you through the settings and show you what this little camera should be set at for me, for what I like to do. It won't be exactly what you want, but it's a fully customizable camera. You can do anything you can think of. It's Nikon, it's where everything should be. It's not much different to my Z9. I can pick up any Nikon camera and know where the adjustments are that I need to make. And you're gonna love this little camera because I'm falling in love. I call it the vlog runner. So, all right, deep dive into the menu and see you on the other side. Cheers. We are. You've got my dulcet tones for the next little bit while we delve into the deep side of the menu. So let's start at the top. So we've got the playback menu, and you know, we've got delete, selected pictures, pictures shot on selected dates, all images. So you know, that's pretty cool actually. Playback folder, I've set it to all. Playback display options. These are good for you actually to see where your focus point is and exposure info and things like that. I like to add so to do that actually, you just press the cursor, which is the one with the OK button, to the right to toggle it on or toggle it off. And then, you know, you can add exposure info, highlights, RGB, shooting data, none, picture only. That's a really good one. You're going to want that. Overview, definitely. Shooting data for sure. Exposure info. So there you go. And then just press the little arrow at the top here to go back. Ooh, yes. We do want to save the changes. So press yes. And let's just check that they're there. Yes, they are. That's great. Beautiful Nikon, way that you look after us here. Picture review. I always have picture review off. Now you might want to have it on. Rotate tall. I have that set to off because rotate tall means that if you're looking at your camera screen landscape, it will turn it around. It'll be small. I'd rather have a larger view and turn my camera to the side so that I can see what's going on there. Got slideshow. You got ratings. You can rate your shots. You know, you can pick that one and you know, just give it a little rating and 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star, 5 star, absolutely. And then press the OK button, which is in the middle. And there you go. Give it a little bit of a rating. And then let's go down to the photo shooting menu. I know I'm talking a little bit quick, but you can pause this at any time, can't you? And then press the little button to little back arrow, and it will give you an extra 5 seconds. Reset photo shooting menu. I don't need to do that, but you can. The storage folder. Now the storage folder, I always name mine. Like this is a JB, as in Jasin Boland Z30. I do that for all my cameras. Like, you know, my Z9, ZFC, Z62, Z72, whatever the camera is. You know, it's really good to do that so that when you're looking at a file, you know where it is. Not for any other reason apart from just knowing what camera took what photo, especially if you're using multiple cameras. You can pick it up, or you can sit there and think, oh, I shot that on the Z30, where would that be? And boom, you've got it. Also, you know, if you have a problem with a card or anything like that, I mean, I don't have problems with cards because I use Hoodmans, but if you do have a problem with anything that's going on in the camera, you know which camera body has shot it. File naming Z30, same thing, same reasons, I can check it out. Now choose the image area. It is a DX camera, so you're only going to have limited to square for your old Insta, and a little bit of nostalgia there, going back to the 6x6 days, and you know, medium format, and the 16x9. The 16x9 actually is so beautiful for doing landscapes, and you know, for me on a film set, it's you know, sometimes it can just be a matter of getting rid of some equipment, you know, to kind of try and match a little bit of their own framing. But don't forget to turn it back on. You have no idea how many times I've gone and downloaded my work for the day, and I've gone, that is a really weird frame, and then I've had it set to DX. I've had it set to 16:9 all day, and I'm just like, you idiot. Image quality, I always shoot RAW. I suggest you do too. You can shoot RAW and JPEG. You can shoot JPEG if you want, but I don't see the point in it. You know, you lose all the latitude. The RAW, you've got so much recovery, and we're all learning. We all make mistakes, and RAW can alleviate those mistakes. They can fix what you've messed up. The image size, I can't do this in this option at the moment because I'm on RAW. So if I go to JPEG, fine, then I've got the image size, and then I can change it to you know, anything there. So I'm going to take that back to RAW so I don't forget. Now 14-bit RAW recording, the Z9, that doesn't have that anymore. That has high efficiency, and it's always shooting at 14-bit. Now with these cameras and sensors, my suggestion is keep it at 14-bit. With stills, it's a bit of a turbocharge. You get more frame rate, and I find that the autofocus is more responsive. If your camera is feeling a little bit slow, take it off 14-bit and put it onto 12. I can't see you seeing any difference. Some will, you know, I mean, it's got to do with color and a multitude of things, but it does suck up more power. I'm telling you that right now. Now, ISO settings, I've got it set to 400 at the moment. I have auto ISO control off. Now, when you're in the video mode on this camera, I touched on it earlier, it does shoot with auto ISO. The reason, well, I don't know why the reason is that you can't turn it off, but you can turn it off if you go to manual, of course, because then it will do exactly what it's told. But as a general rule, the reason for it being there is because they don't want you to be messing with the aperture and the shutter speed in the middle of shooting a video. And the reason for that is, you change with aperture, you're changing the depth, so it's going to do some funky little things with your image. Don't be put off by the auto ISO, but do. Whoops, I have to turn it on to do this, but do limit it. Now, you can go down right down here to 51,200, and then you got high 1 and high 2. Now, you're not going to want to use these high ISOs, outside. You've got, you're shooting down a 50th of a second anyway and stuff like that. I would limit it to 6400 ISO at night, even maybe 3200. You just, again, click it to the right next to the OK button. During the daytime, just set it on something like 400 or 800. I'm not sure what the native ISO is on this camera, but most digital cameras are around 800. Just because it goes down to 200 ISO on the Z30 doesn't necessarily mean that is the optimum. 400 or 800 during the day and 32 to 6400 during the night. Now I'm going to turn that back off because that's what I do with mine. White balance, I have it set to auto 1 at the moment, just because I am using this camera in as much auto as what I can, actually, because I really just, I feel like this is a camera that's begging to be used this way, because I'm using it for blogging, vlogging, the old, the vlog runner. I want to be able to pick it up and go, and as you saw, the exposures were really good. It handled it great. I had it set to plus 1/3 on the auto compensation, which is next to the trigger button on the top right. You'll see a little plus minus. The way to think of that is if it's too dark, you want to give it more light, right? So you press it down and you go plus. So plus is adding light, minus is subtracting it. It's a very simple way of thinking. It's really, really useful. And, especially if you're in snow or the beach or a cloudy day, you're definitely going to want to use that. Now, on a film set, I match what light is there during the day. So I can set that to preset or manual or choose color temperature. And, 5600, is a pretty standard day. I can do that. And, but I'm going to put it back to auto. And, you've got all these different options. Keep white, reduce warm colors, keep overall atmosphere, keep warm lighting colors. I've got it on auto 1 because it's pretty standard. But, these are all things for you to play with. They're going to be things that work for you and are personal settings. Doesn't mean that they won't work for me, but they doesn't mean they won't work for you either. But these are personal settings, so you want to change. Right, so now we're going to set picture control. Now, set picture control, I usually have it set on standard, and then I make a few tweaks. A lot of people sit there and go, it doesn't change anything. It's like you shoot RAW, and then it's going to be RAW. Well, in a way, that's correct. NX Studio, well, then those settings that you've made are going to be standard through it. You have the mid-range sharpening stuff. I just drop that a little bit. Clarity. I don't want things like overly sharp. You might, but it's all things, go through and have a test with everything. The hue I set to +1 to get rid of, my face gets a little bit red sometimes. So I have that set and it gets rid of the magenta and a redness. So, that's really, really good for getting rid of stuff like that. And, saturation, you can just change everything there. It's like super good. Press the little arrow to go back again. And manage picture control. You can save it. And so then you can, put it back into a different camera and stuff like that. Color space, sRGB. I use sRGB. They say that sRGB gives you the most accurate printout. Right, now interactive D-lighting and long exposure and high ISO noise reduction. all these. Now I have these turned off. The active delighting, that sort of it changes contrast and things like that. It's not something that I use. You can do it later in NX Studio. I really love the program, and it is made for your camera. So, you know, give it a crack. And a lot of people just use Lightroom and, you know, Elements or Bridge or, you know, Capture, whatever. But Nikon Studio is made for your Nikon camera, and you can change all the settings in there later, and you know, it's really really worthwhile using. You know, all the vignette control. Now, like I said, I have these all turned off. The reason being is I want my camera to work as quick as possible. I don't want it to be hindered in any way. I find that it can slow down the camera. It doesn't mean that it's not making it better, because it's doing what it's meant to do. You know, but if you feel like things might be a little bit sluggish, it could be because you've got everything turned on, and sometimes it doesn't give you the actual look you want too. I like to see my images in their rawest form, so I'm all about turning things off and just turning them back on when you need it. You know, flicker reduction, that's an important one. You know, if you're getting some flicker when you're not using the mechanical shutter, then for stills, that is, then you're going to want to turn the flicker reduction on. And also, you know, if you are getting a little bit of banding in silent, you just slow the shutter down, and it will get rid of it that way. And also worth noting too is that the mechanical shutter doesn't work on all lenses. It doesn't work on the kit lens, but it'll work on the other S mount lenses, and I'm not sure if it'll work on the F mount. I'm pretty sure it will with an F to Z converter. Now, metering, you know, you got your matrix that, you know, gives you a coverage of an average of the whole frame when it's trying to find the light. That's a really good one to keep it on. Center weighted, that's obviously what it is. It's like you point it at what it is. You don't want to be pointing the center weight of the spot or the highlight, sorry, I should say, weighted metering to a black or a white spot. The highlight, you'd point it to a spot on the face at a concert or something like that. The same as with spot metering, that is going to pick a tiny little spot. So if you've got an area on a face which you want that to be the exposure, you'd point it at that. Self timers, you know, 10 seconds, you've got plenty of time to run in there. And, you know, especially if you're on a tripod or something like that, or you're just resting it on the ground, and, you know, it's a long exposure, well, then you want to use that so that you don't bump the camera, you know, when you're squeezing or pressing the trigger. You don't want to do that. And then, you know, for stills, if you go into the I menu, where, you know, I have my I menu set up with all my favorite settings, you know, you should do that as well. It's like, you know, really easy access to, it's like opening the glove box in your car and finding the stuff that you really want. But, you know, you can do it 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and 10 seconds and stuff like that too. Right, so let's go. I'm in video mode at the moment to show my screen, actually. Some of the settings aren't all 100% available for me to show you, like, you know, the I menu and stuff like that. I have to do that. Okay, so same thing, video recording, the Z30. The frame rate, frame size, like, now I have it on 24p. I have that on 24p because it's a more cinematic look, what I'm used to at work. You've got 25p, which is a little bit smoother, and the 30p, which is a little bit smoother again. There are reasons to use them all. 24p is basically how your eye sees things, but you know, the others, there's no right or wrong. It's really a look. You know, then you've got the 120, the 100, the 60. They're all for slow shutters and stuff like that. And, you know, you've got slow motion ×4 and ×5 here as well. Have a play with that because it's fun, like really fun. Right, and you can fix it later in, you know, I use Final Cut, so you can, you know, make changes later in things as well anyway. Now, the video file, you've got movie or MP4. Now, the only real difference, I believe, is that MOV is better sound. ISO sensitivity settings, you know, you can change it from auto ISO on manual mode. I've got it set it off, and maximum 6400, like I said before, for video. White balance, again, I've got it set here, but if I thoroughly recommend getting to know what Kelvin looks like. This is the Kelvin setting, and you can even do a preset manual, like you check out what they are and do a frame and sets to the white balance to match the scene that you're doing. Set picture control, same thing as what we talked about upstairs within stills. You just got different settings that you can set for, when you got the little back button there where it says display, and you can turn it from stills to video. You can actually take a photograph, but it'll be JPEG when you're recording, and press the display button, because the display button gives you lots of other options, like virtual horizon and stuff like that. Now, there's no virtual horizon setting in the menu, but it is part of the display. Again, I have all this turned off. You may well, and flicker reduction turned on for video. You may well find that you want to have vignette control depending on the lens you're using, diffraction compensation. It's really up to you to explore and see how you go. So there's the still shot there for in video mode. Focus mode, I have it AFC. Full time too was probably quite helpful, especially with eye detect or face detect. Now, sometimes when you turn, like when I was in selfie mode and I went to take a photograph, or when I went to do video of the Opera House and then turned it back around, it's not defaulting back to eye focus. So just press on the screen onto your face and it will pick you up and it'll track you from there. So don't let that bother you too much. It's not something that that you see all that often. Vibration reduction, I have that turned on. It just gives you that smoother Steadicam look. The electronic VR, I don't use that. I find sometimes it does some weird things to the background, but that's just me. I'm really quite fussy. You got your microphone settings, like wide range, which literally means it will pick up everything for the microphone, or vocal, it'll more inclined to pick up the voice. You've got wind reduction, you can turn that on or off, and time code is really helpful for being able to sync sound and video. So they're things that you definitely want to do. And then custom settings. Now, the custom settings are all stuff which I like to use. And custom settings, I'll set that to, I think it's important to set it to focus. You can set it to release, but that will mean that some images may well be out of focus, and then you'll complain about it later. And then when you look inside, you'll be, because I didn't have it set to focus. Definitely on single release, have it set to focus. Focus tracking with lock on. This means when something comes in front of what you're shooting, like if someone walks through, if you've got it set to delayed, it will remain on what is already focused in the background. It's good for sport or even just, photographing a friend and someone, some member of the public walks through. If you are doing more sport inclined things and you want to track from one part to another, then set it to quick. It'll do what it's told, so don't get confused by it. If something doesn't work right, you really need to explore it a little bit more. Like my Z9 works completely different to my Z30 or my ZFC. So just all these things I'm showing them to you, but they're for you to play with. So focus points used, that's all points. And these are alternating. I like to be really accurate with my framing, so I have all points set. Store points by orientation. Again, that's a personal thing. Just go into every single thing on here and have a bit of a play. AF activation. This is your back button settings, which is kind of cool that it has back button settings. Right, limit the AF mode selection. I have it set to everything. There's a focus point for everything, and all these focus points are there for a reason. This is one of the most common ones you'll use is the auto area AF. That's the whole frame. This one here for the wide area, that's a box. That's really good too, because, you know, you can be more accurate of letting it know where to be. And dynamic is, you know, pretty much a sport setting. Pinpoint, I don't know, why have I not got pinpoint on? Pinpoint on is really good, especially like if you've got some bars or something in the way and you want to put it on pinpoint, you know, you've got a cluttered area, just throw it onto pinpoint and, you know, it'll declutter the frame. And yeah, I'm going to save that. Right, focus wraparound. Now, this is a really important one. Now, what it means is, for me anyway, it's an important one because I like to do things really quick. So it means your focus point in the middle, instead of getting to the edge of the right or the left-hand frame and stopping, it will wrap around. So if you go to the right, then the next thing it'll pop up on the left. That's really cool for me because I don't know whether I've got some neurological things going on. I'm sure I do. But I would rather keep going the same way. I find it quicker than moving my thumb over to the other side and going backwards. And plus, if you just press the OK button, it will then bring the focus back to the center of the frame, which, you know, I use constantly because it's like I use it like a sight. So if I know that my focus is in the middle, I point my camera and I'm pretty close to already being there to start with. Focus point options is, you know, manual focus mode is on, you know, I have the ability to do that, and dynamic AF assist, I have that on. You know, I don't know whether I need it. Low light assist, I would have that off. If you're having some problems with low light, turn it on, give it a crack. Easy exposure compensation, I have that off, but like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of the exposure compensation. The center weighted area, this is so cool that, you know, you can change from average to, you know, to an 8mm, and it's really cool of Nikon to put all this stuff, you know, I mean, like, I pick up this camera and everything is in the same spot with all my cameras. You know, with the Z9, sure, I have a few extra things, but there's not much that this little Z30 has apart from speed that my other cameras don't. So, you know, fine tune optimal exposure. That's something that you might want to, I'm not going to do that though. It's something that you might want to do if you're finding for your look, you need to change things. The shutter release button, you know, again, these are all personal preferences of how you're going to use your camera. The self timer, it's set on 10 seconds at the moment, but there you go, what we're looking for before, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10, 20. I think on the video it's set to 10, but that would probably be for good reason. You know, 2 seconds is when you're on a tripod or when you've got your camera sitting on the floor for a long night exposure and you don't want to shake the camera, then you just press it and take your hands away. 5 seconds, same sort of thing. 10 seconds and 20 seconds is when you want to set it up for a selfie and run in there for yourself. Right, now, the power off delay, this is an important part. Now, these ones don't matter so much, playback, the menus, and the picture view, but the standby timer is important. If you're doing a Zoom conference call or, you know, anything like that, you know, this camera is so good for that because, you know, you throw in a lens or, you know, the kit lens and you just punch it out a little bit and, you know, it gives you a nice little zoom look and you look pretty cool actually. But remember to have it on standby timer, otherwise the camera's going to turn off and you're going to be sitting there looking like a duck. And they'll be like, where'd he go? Where'd Jason go? And then Jason will come back on and I'll say, oh mate, I forgot to set my standby timer to no limit. And you don't want to be caught out with that. And I have plenty of times. The continuous low mode shooting speed, you got, you know, 1 to 4. I have it set to 3. 3 is a lucky number. So it really doesn't make much difference there what you do. Maximum shots per burst, you want to have that on the highest. You know, you want to give it every opportunity to get the shot. You don't want to have it set to 10 and then all of a sudden it stops, do you? Exposure delay, I have it off. There's lots of reasons to use this, but none that I use. But basically what it means is if you've got it set and you're in the middle of taking a photograph, instead of the auto exposure instantly changing with the lighting change, you can delay it for 3 seconds or whatever, how many seconds that you want that are available here, so that it doesn't
keep fluctuating. Now the shutter type, I can't go to mechanical with this lens on. The reason to use mechanical is if you're getting banding from some dodgy LED lighting and stuff like that. 100% you want to be on mechanical shutter, or if you're shooting sport, you know, you're throwing the camera around, you want to do that. When you're in silent, that is not mechanical shutter, that's electronic. But yeah, the mechanical shutter is a really handy piece to have on these cameras. So the file sequence number on, you know, again, that's up to you. Apply settings to live view. I have that on so that you can see your exposure live. You can turn it off, which then will brighten up especially in dark situations, it will brighten up the exposure, or actually what you're seeing on the screen. There's no EVF, so it won't see it through there. It'd be cool if you get an EVF for this. But like I said earlier, I mean, it actually makes it smaller so you can stuff it into places that you wouldn't normally go. And so many people use the screens these days, I don't think it makes any difference. The framing grid, I really like the framing grid. I'm a 3x3 guy, so I could be there. Now, focus peaking is really good. Focus peaking is, I have it set to high. Focus peaking is what you use in manual focus. So the brighter the color or the red or whatever you've got it set to, that is what's in focus. So you can sit there and, again, like, you know, if you're shooting through a net or bars or something like that, you know, give it a try. You move the focus ring to get it sharp, and sometimes you can't see it just from looking at the screen, but the red will go really bright, and it also shows you the depth of field and the other areas that are going to be sharp with it as well. It's a really good thing to get used to. Now, I do turn the focus ring off on my cameras. Get used to turning it on and off. The reason being that if you're zooming, sometimes you can knock that focus ring if it's switched on, and then you'll get back and you'll be like, "Oh, my photos were out of focus," and it is because you've pushed it into manual mode and you've taken it off the auto. So if you're having those problems at all, my suggestion would be that you turn the focus ring off and only turn it on when you need to or want to when you're in manual focus mode. If you don't understand it, leave me a little message and I'll fill you in. Now, flash, I don't use flash except for, you know, when I'm shooting a big movie poster. And these settings won't mean anything to me. I don't know how, I mean, like, flash is great, but with digital just picks up the natural light, you know, at night, day, whatever. And it is so beautiful that I really don't see the point in ruining it with a big old flash. You know, I mean, maybe punching a flash in from behind or something like that, you know, that's really cool, just to give yourself a little bit of a hair light or whatever. Natural light's the way to go. Now, the custom eye menu, this is really, really good, and you'll see it on the back. It's over to the right. Now, these are all your favorite settings. You know, like, I've got it at the moment. This is in the stills mode one, but you know, silent photography, image quality, and, you know, you can change these to, you know, all sorts of different things. You know, it's especially good in the video mode and, you know, other things that you want. But you know, there's time lapse. You can set it to anything, so it's really easy, quick access. You know, these are all my favorites, so that doesn't mean they'll be yours. Custom controls. These are really, you can set the custom controls in the eye menu as well for this actual part. But, you know, like the function 1 button, for example, you know, you can change it to, you know, any one of these things. That's the good thing about Nikon, is they really give you all these options to make the camera you know. It's like, it's so cool. Obviously that on there, that only changes when you're in stills mode. It won't change it when you're in video mode, so it will still make the video go off. You know, you've got all these functions on the lenses as well, you know, depending on the lens that you've got. You're not stuck with just using this kit lens, mind you. Just go out, and this is the time to be purchasing glass, little kit lens, which I didn't want to buy. And I had to because it only came in a kit. And I was like, oh, I've got so many lenses, I don't really need it. And I'm loving it. It was like so much fun today cruising around. Custom controls, playback, same thing. You can, you can make all the changes that you want to, whatever's easiest and the best access for yourself. The reverse rotation and the change main and sub, you can change like the apertures in the front wheel and the shutters in the rear wheel. You can change that around. And, in my old days, I always did, and I may well go back to doing that because I'm still so used to when I want to change the exposure down, I use the back wheel and it changes my shutter. And sometimes I sit there and it's like, oh my gosh, I've changed it to 40th of a second, you idiot, Boland. So yeah. And the release button to use dial, I have that set off. The reverse indicators, you can change all that as well, especially if you're coming from another system, being able to change all these to put it somewhere where you're familiar is a really good idea. Here you go for the customize iMenu for the video, the picture control. Because if you go to picture control too, is you can set it to like a black and white or, different filters in video and in stills. So, you want to be able to do that. But these are all functions that, you might go, oh, got to get in there right now and change without having to deep dive into the menu system. It's, it's right there on the back of the camera, ready to go. Same thing, we went through the custom controls. Now the AF speed, is important for video because it can give you a smooth transition if you move it from one subject to another instead of smashing in like it's going through a wall. It will creep up gently like those beautiful hand-pulled focuses that you see in the movies by the first AC. And they tell the story with their focus. So play around with all that. It's all there ready to go. Format memory card, that's pretty standard. Save user settings. Language, time zones, monitor brightness. That can be really important actually. I have it in the dark area. I have it set up quite high, and when I'm outside, I have it down low a couple. So see what works for you. You're never going to know what it is until you go out there and practice and have a look at the result when you get back home. The monitor color balance. A little bit too technical for me. I don't think I really need to. Look, there I am again. But it's there for when you need to. Record lamp brightness, you can turn that off. If it's annoying someone, to be more discreet, that's a really good thing to be able to take off. The information display, you can be dark on light and light on dark. The AF fine tuning options. See, these are all in all the professional Nikon cameras, and here it is in this beautiful little entry level Z30, and it's really very cool. Now the image comment, I always have that on. So again, this is the JB Jasin Boland Z30A camera. So if I had two of these, then the other one would be B. And then with the copyright information, I have that on. I have that as my email address. For a number of reasons, people can get in contact me without any problems over an image. But also, should you lose your camera, hopefully someone goes in and they might find it, and then they can find you and send your little camera back. Touch controls, I love the touch controls. The self-portrait mode, I don't even know what that does, but that's got to be cool. I'm gonna dive into that. You've got your HDMI's, and I have all this stuff again set to off to preserve battery power. But airplane mode, it's the same as with your phone. It just turns off all the other options to connect to smart devices and computers. The Nikon app is great. You can connect to that and you know, download your photos and all that. It's very, very cool. And what else we got? Well, I've got that turned on. So, you know, now the slot empty release lock, set it to lock. If you don't have a card in there and it's not set to lock, you can be shooting all day long and there'll be nothing there. So if you've got it set to lock, then you can't make a mistake and you will always have to have a card in there. Now the firmware version, you know, this is a very new camera, so there's no firmware to update yet. Now, as soon as Nikon bring a firmware version out, I suggest you do it, because with Nikon, they bring out a lot of firmware updates and it's like getting a new camera. Other manufacturers would make you go and buy a new version of the camera, like, you know, a Z32 or a Z30A or whatever you're going to call it. But Nikon bring out these free firmware updates, and, you know, sometimes are bug fixes and other times are completely new options to use in your camera. So it's very, very cool. Now you've got a retouch menu. I haven't got an image to do that, but, you know, you can retouch in the camera, which is so cool, and then send it to your smart device and off you go. Now, you know, more customizable options. When you move the focus point for the wraparound, see how it just moved from one side to the other? That's what I was saying. It's like push to the right and it comes up on the left. Perfect. So there you go. There's the settings, which I thought was only going to be like a 10-minute video, but it's gone on forever. I hope it helps you guys. So there you go. There's the my little talk on the settings. Not so little. It went for a lot longer than what I thought we were going to go. I thought it was like, oh yeah, I'll get this over for everyone in like 10 minutes. So it's like a turbo tutorial, but it wasn't. I'm so sorry. But I hope it covered most things. If you need to deep dive, of course, there's the manual and there's other options out there, you know, like Rishi and Matt Granger and Matt Irwin. They're really, you know, good for Nikon people and users to answer some questions.
So team, that's our little chat on the video settings. It wasn't so little, was it? I banged on a bit. At worst case, you can always send it into a podcast and use it to go to sleep at night. Now, like I said, the settings aren't going to be for everyone, but it's going to give you an idea whether you're in the right track or the wrong track, or you can actually just disregard everything I did and you've learned something there as well. The one thing that I would like to see is in selfie mode, the virtual horizon isn't available. Now, I love that feature on the camera, and it's a bit beyond me because, you know, I don't know where I'm going, whether I'm wobbly or not. And like I said, there's no IBIS in the camera, but there's VR, and I think you'll agree that it does a pretty good job of keeping things stable, like a, you know, steady cam in the cinema world. All right, enjoy your day, and if you could, do the bell and subscribe. That'd be really cool too. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.